Hi everyone, I'm Matt from Look Into Bitcoin, and today we're going to be doing a Bitcoin roundup to discuss the current market conditions. We're going to try gain some insight into Bitcoin's recent up, down, and sideways price action, and how we should consider positioning ourselves going forward. We'll be using a number of resources, all freely available on lookintobitcoin.com, your number one source for Bitcoin information. If you haven't already, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications to ensure you're receiving all of our content as soon as it's released. So right now, we're just on the BTC USD daily chart here on TradingView, and as we can see, recently price action has been mixed. We've had some up days, some down days, and a lot of sideways. If I just turn this on, we can see where the previous all-time high was, and we can almost visualize Bitcoin trying to bounce away from it, but struggling, but still kind of trying to find some support on that previous all-time high. But realistically, we haven't really done a whole lot. If we actually measure it out, we have stayed within a fairly tight range of sideways movement for nearly 80 days. So really, a lot of people are getting, very emotional as Bitcoin potentially makes new lows or makes new highs. But realistically, as long as we stay within this tight range, not a lot is really happening. You could have bought Bitcoin nearly 3 months ago, come back today and it's the same price. All this intraday volatility and swings really is just noise on the bigger time frames. One other thing we need to look at though is the 200-week moving average, which is just this white line here. Now this is aggregating the average closing price of the previous 200 weeks of price action. And this might be a line to watch for Bitcoin. As you can see, we've almost tried to break through, and we did temporarily before coming back down. But historically, this moving average has been a great indication for where Bitcoin may be in a cycle. Usually, as we gravitate towards this moving average and potentially dip just slightly beneath it, that is usually a great area to potentially pick up some discounted BTC for the upcoming cycle. Will the same hold true this time? We'll have to wait and see. So we have a few charts we're going to go through today, a couple bullish, a couple bearish, and then you can come up with your own conclusion of where we may be. The first one is the RHull ratio. And as you can see, for the first time in over 3 years, we have dipped back into this green buy zone. If I just zoom in a little bit here, we have recently dipped into this RHull buy zone, which was last seen in May 2019. So over 3 years ago. Now, the RHull ratio is looking at the relationship between new investors in the scene and people that have been in for about a 1 to 2 year period. So once there is a very stark difference between new users entering the space, new people potentially investing in Bitcoin for the first time, in relation to the amount of people that have been holding for a 1 to 2 year period, we can see when Bitcoin gets potentially overheated and is usually looking to top out in price, and when Bitcoin is potentially at a discount when we dip into here. So in this green area, it's indicating that in comparison for new users to users that have been in the space to about 1 to 2 years, there's a stark difference. There are not many people coming into the space, and people are deciding to hodl and hold on to the Bitcoin for a longer time frame. So as we can see, we've come into this buy zone. Historically, this has been a great area to pick up some discounted BTC. Will it be the same again in this instance? We'll have to wait and see. Next, we can look at the price forecast tools. And this is one little thing that I've noticed. Just recently, we can see we haven't actually touched these two bottom lines here, which is the balanced price and the CVDD. Now, historically, these have been great points to potentially pick up, again, some BTC at a discounted price. But what we can also see is in the previous few cycles, Bitcoin's price has actually bottomed just after the CVDD and the balanced price have crossed. Then following that, we get a few bounces and price kind of finds support on this CVDD line. This has been true in the previous 2 bear cycles. They cross, we find support, and we usually bottom out around that range. If we look into Bitcoin's price action now, we can see we have actually just got this cross in the balance price and CVDD, but we are yet to test either of them. Both sitting around the $16,500 mark. So if we do continue to make lower lows, that might be a good area of support, but again, we'll have to wait and see. Next is the whale shadows, and what this is showing us is when large, older Bitcoin wallets are beginning to move their coins for the first time in an extended period of time. So these pink, purpley bars are looking at Bitcoin wallets that have been holding Bitcoin for 7 to 9 years and are finally beginning to move their BTC. Now, this is only including Bitcoin transactions of at least 100 Bitcoin, so these are fairly substantial moves on the market. But one thing we can observe is every time there is a big spike in these bars, such as here, just as price peaked at above $60,000, and most recently here, just again as price was at about $47,000 before the big crash. And all throughout history, really, these peaks tend to happen just before a negative movement in Bitcoin's price. And very recently, we've actually got one of these spikes again. So these come very rarely, but once they do happen, historically, they've usually indicated that a downwards price move is coming. Usually we can associate Bitcoin whales, people that are holding a lot of BTC for an extended period of time, usually may have some better insight into what may be coming up in price action. And as I said, recently we have seen a new big movement on chain. So this is something to potentially be cautious about to see if the trend continues and Bitcoin has a negative reaction in price following this. But lastly, we have the hash ribbons. And this is the final, slightly more bullish argument we can look at. And recently the hash ribbons have crossed up again and given us a almost orange yellowy background to a white background flash, which indicates that not only have the hash ribbons crossed up, but both of them are trending upwards. The hash ribbons looking at the aggregated hash rate of BTC securing the Bitcoin network over a 30-day and a 60-day period. So if we zoom out, we can actually see every time we've had one of these crosses where the hash ribbon, the slightly faster 30-day moving average has crossed above the 60-day, as they've been moving up, we've seen a very positive reaction in price. On every single circumstance, such as here, we went from around $3,500 to about $13,000, and here again, $7,000 to $10,000. And of course, most recently, we saw a spike from about $45,000, again, upwards of $67,000 following that. So could this potentially indicate that Bitcoin is going to have a fairly good and bullish upcoming few weeks and months? We'll have to wait and see. It's impossible to say for certain, and as we have some conflicting ideas on bullish and bearishness given a few of the charts we've looked at, it'll be up to you to come up with your own conclusion. So just to summarize, according to multiple metrics, Bitcoin is at levels that have historically been considered good value. If we look at the RHull Ratio and the hash ribbons crossing, historically these have both been great indications to potentially pick up some cheap BTC for strategic investors. Along with that, we can see that as the hash rate is increasing, it indicates that miners are continuing to invest money into securing the BTC network. And with a bullish ribbon crossover, this is potentially again providing another great opportunity. The fact that we're not seeing hash rate dropping substantially and continuing to fall along with price gives us a good idea that potentially miners aren't that bearish on the upcoming future of BTC. However, we can also see that on-chain movements from many large players, big whales in the space that haven't moved their BTC in a long period of time, are finally beginning to move their Bitcoin on-chain, usually precedes negative price action. And recently we have seen a fair amount of on-chain whale movement. So again, that is something we need to keep an eye on. And finally, Bitcoin has yet to reach one of its historically accurate bottom value indicators. So the CVDD and the balance price, which we saw before, those values have crossed, which usually indicate Bitcoin's price bottoming, but we haven't actually tested either of those levels yet, which through the previous bear cycles have called the Bitcoin's price bottom. If you like this video, then please visit lookintobitcoin.com, where you can also consider becoming a site subscriber to gain access to live chats, in-depth newsletters, indicator alerts, private trading view scripts, and more, all for a fraction of the standard industry price. Also, let me know what your thoughts are on the current Bitcoin situation. Do you think we're up for a bullish few months coming up, or are we potentially going to see new lows for this cycle? Let me know in the comments below. I look forward to reading and replying to all of them. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.